Hey, what's going on YouTube? Finally going to get in here and replace this wheel hub assembly today. I've been having some problems with some noise around the 50 miles per hour range, and I believe it's this hub behind this wheel going bad. And the reason I kind of came to that conclusion is because when I take the tire off and the wheel off and give it a little spin, it doesn't spin very freely for very long. So I'm going to jump in here today and replace this hub and see if that fixes my problem. So I'm going to walk you guys through the process of how I do that so you can do it yourself. So check this out. Alright, so the first step is going to be to just go ahead and jack this vehicle up safely. So I'm going to get out my rolling jack, my floor jack, and a jack stand. Make sure I've got this thing supported nice and safe. I've got another video on my channel if you want to check out how to do this safely, but I'm just going to go do that real quick and then I'll jump back in with taking the tire off, or the wheel off. So that's what's next. Now that I've got the vehicle supported, all I'm going to do is go ahead and take this tire, go ahead and take this wheel off. I love using that impact for that. It just makes it so much easier. Charge runs out pretty quick, but it's worth it just for taking these wheels off. Alright, so we'll just go ahead and pull this wheel off and move it to the side. Perfect. So now we've got this exposed. Our next step is going to be to remove the brake caliper. So I'll have to get that out of the way, pull the rotor off, and then we should be able to get to the hub. Okay, so now I'm just going in, removing the brake caliper, get it out of the way, and pull the rotor off. So what you're going to do is get a 19mm socket and pull off your caliper with the two bolts that are on the back here, the slide bolts. Let's see if I can break these loose. Helps if you turn it the right way. Just gonna break those loose. Okay, once you get those two guide pins broke loose, you can loosen them up by hand. You should be able to, at that point, take your caliper off. Alright, so you'll pull those two out, and that'll give you access to your pads. Just gently work the pads out. And now we need to remove the caliper mount. Okay, I don't know how well this is going to show. I wanted to get you guys a little bit closer look at what I just did. So I removed the bolt from this guide pin and the bolt from this guide pin. There's two of them, 19mm, and I'm just resting the caliper up here. Be careful to not, overly twist this hose too much because you want that in good shape. But once we get that off, then I just removed the brake pads out of their mounts here, and we need to get this caliper mount off. So in order to do that, let me see if I can show you guys. There's a bolt here, a 19mm there, and there's another one right down here. We need to remove those, and then we'll be able to pull this off, much like if you were repairing the rotor by replacing it. Alright, once you get those two 19mm bolts out of the back, they can be kind of a bear, so get ready to grunt a little bit. You can just pull this mounting bracket off, and set it to the side. I recently went through and cleaned all of this with a wire brush and some brake clean just a couple months ago, so mine's fairly clean enough to my liking. But if you get down here and your brakes and stuff are real dirty, this is a real good time to check out your brakes, maybe replace pads and rotors while you're down here, because you got to take all the same stuff off. So if you need that, now's a good time to do it. But our next step is going to be to undo the Torx key here and pull this rotor off so we can get to the hub assembly behind it. So I need to go find my star bits. I'll be right back. Found my bit. Let's just go ahead and unscrew this here. Pull this little bolt out off the rotor. Set it aside, make sure you don't lose it. And we can just pull this off and set it aside. Alright, we finally made it to the hub assembly. And this is what I believe the part is that's giving me fits. The reason I bring that up is, like I was telling y'all earlier, see how that doesn't freely spin? This is a two-wheel drive truck, so it doesn't have anything going on back here behind. Just should free spin, being a two-wheel drive. But it's even worse than it was back when I tried before. When I do that on the other side, I can just grab two of these lugs and give her a little spin, and she just spins freely. So I'm going to put on the new part and see if we can get some free spin going. So our next step is going to be 3 bolts on the back of here, and I'll grab the camera and show you guys. But we'll need to pull out 3 bolts off the back of this to pull this off. So let's get to that. Okay, it's a little difficult to get a good angle and the sun's not being my friend right now. But if you look on the back of the steering spindle, or the spindle for the suspension, there's 3 bolts right there, and you can see the middle of the hub right there in the very center of the frame there. So what we're going to want to do is take those off, and that should free everything up. We may have to remove that speed sensor cable as well. I'll have to look into that. Okay, first, before we do those 3 bolts on the back, if you look right behind the lugs here, this is what's going to be your wheel speed sensor, and you want to go ahead and remove that. And it looks like it is like an Allen key or a hex. So I'll get the appropriate size for that, remove it, and then we can move on to the back here. And these look to be 15 millimeters. Okay, so you'll want to get an Allen key to take off that sensor right there in the top left corner of your screen. And then I've got a socket stuck on one of the bolts that you need to remove for the wheel hub, and it's a 15 millimeter. So find you the appropriate sized Allen key, hex key, and then a 15 millimeter socket will get you done here on the back. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these, and then we'll show you what it is, taken off. That's quite the rig to get this little bolt out. Probably not the right tools for the job, but it did it. So I'm going to try and make sure that no dirt gets down in that hole, because it looks like it's greased. Probably don't want to mess that up, but this is what I had to do to get that out. Alright, so once you get that out, you want to pull this out of the way. I just got it real dirty, so I'm probably going to try and clean this off a little bit. There's all kinds of dirt back here, but it's falling down in the holes too. Yeah, so I'm going to make sure I get that cleaned up and probably re-greased before I put it back into the new one. Let's just move it out of the way for now and move on to taking this whole hub off. So I'm going to move down to these bolts here on the back. They actually broke loose pretty easily, so that's always a plus. So here's what you're looking to remove. There's 3 of these. Get all 3 of these out, and we should be able to pull this free. There's number 2. Now on to the last one. This is why you wear gloves. That could have been my hand. Alright, there's number 3. So this should come off now. Let's give it a little tug. There you go. Got those 3 bolts loose. Here's the old hub assembly we're going to replace. And the heat shield, which decided to fall off too. So, I'm assuming that went on there like this. Now it's probably a good time to get this cleaned up though, like I was talking about with the wire brush. I didn't have access to this before. So, I'm going to give that a little go before I put the new one on. So now I'm just going to take this wire brush, give this a little buffing, just to kind of clear some of this rust off. Probably a good idea not to breathe too much of this in. If you can, wear a mask. You don't really have to do this step either. This is just me being OCD. You could easily just put the new one on. This isn't that bad of rust. This is just surface stuff. But I figured I'd clean it up while I'm down here. Okay, so that's a little bit of the spindle cleaned up. It's not by any means very clean. Really, I'm just tired of scrubbing on it, and it's not really that necessary because it's just going to rust again. I really just wanted to make sure that I got this mating surface for the new wheel hub assembly nice and somewhat clean. So now I think I'm going to go ahead and install a new one, and we'll get everything put back together. And this should be a good to go project. Alright, so here's the new one compared to that old one. Looks like we already got a sensor plugged in and ready to go, so I'll have to figure out how to get this to go with the existing one. Okay, so I've been paying attention, and this new hub assembly actually comes with the wheel speed sensor wire already pre-attached in there. So what you're going to want to do is, you know how I removed it down here on the actual bearing housing? You're going to want to unclip it here and actually run these little snaps all the way up to up here and disconnect it there and plug this new one in. So that's how this is actually going to go. So I'm going to work on getting this off next. And just in case that didn't show on the tripod, what I'm talking about is I had disconnected this bit from the old housing, but really what I should have done was disconnect this. I'll have to move the caliper out of the way, but this runs up under here. It connects again right here on your upper control arm, connects here on where the upper control arm mounts to the frame, and then there's actually a clip up here that I'll have to disconnect, and that's where you plug the new one in. So you just want to trace this wire, and that's how you're going to want to hook up the new one. So I'm going to take this old one off, probably mount the new wheel hub, and then run the cable. That'll be the easiest way to do this. So that's what I'm going to do now. Now that I've gotten this old ABS wire out, or wheel speed sensor wire out, it'll be time to put the new wheel hub on. So the first move is going to be to actually put this heat shield back on for the brakes, and you want to make sure that you get it the right orientation that it came off, and it should face forward like this. You're going to want to get it on there, and I'll put the new bolts in to kind of hold it, but the bulk of it should be running kind of towards the front of the truck. And if you forget, you can just look at the other side that you haven't disassembled, and it'll tell you. But this is how it goes on here. So I'm going to mount the new wheel hub and then run the wire and snap it into the slots that it goes into. But that's the next move. We're just about done. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and slide the new bolts that came with this Moog wheel hub. Just going to slide them into their slots. And go ahead and put this shielding back on, like I just talked about. Make sure you get the bulk of it facing forward. And then it'll be time to put the new hub on. So just like before, we're gonna make sure we got our cable going the same direction. Let's run it through the heat shielding here. Like that. Then we're gonna make sure we get this on here in the same orientation that we took the old one off. And it's pretty easy to remember, just make sure that you have this plug that's on the wheel hub coming through the slot on the heat shield. That's how you know which way it goes on. And once I get it kind of bolted and held on here, I'll show you. Okay, here's kind of what I was talking about. You can see where that blue wire runs into the new hub. You're going to want to make sure you get that pointed to where it can go through this slot right here in the shielding there. That way the cable runs easy, nice and free, doesn't bind on anything. So what I'm going to do now is get everything tightened up and we'll be good to go. Alright, so now I'm just going to tighten up the 15 millimeters on the back that actually secure the wheel hub to the spindle, and then we'll have to go ahead and make sure we torque that to factory specs, which in the case for this 2007 Silverado Classic is 133 foot-pounds. You really want to make sure you get those factory specs on there, because obviously you have a wheel on here that's spinning. It can be very dangerous if you don't get them tight enough, or if you get them over tight, it can actually shear the bolt. So you really want to try and make sure that you get as close to factory spec tightness as you can. So in order to do that, I'll be busting out a torque wrench and attempting to get it back here to where I can tighten these. But for now, I'm just going to get it tight with the socket wrench. Okay, so now I've got my torque wrench set to the appropriate spec, in this case 133. This is a big one. So I'm going to see if I can manage to get it behind here to actually get these tightened down. Alright, so it took a little doing to get this maneuvered in there. They're all tightened down to 133, so now I need to just route that cord back up and connect it into the factory location, and it should be smooth sailing from there, because it'll just be putting the brake back on, putting the brake assembly back together, and then putting the wheel on, and it'll be done. But let's see how well this new one works. Look at that. Got a little bit of spin to it. Much better than the old one. So let's get this put back together. Okay, for the sake of simplicity, actually, what I'm going to do next is go ahead and put the brake assembly back together. And then I'll run this cord. That way I just have this out of the way, and it'll be easier to do it, because I can actually just bolt this back up. So now we're just going to put the rotor back on. Make sure you find the hole where that key goes. And match those up, which you're going to do. Remember the one you took off, the Torx, you're going to make sure you match that hole up with the one on the hub assembly. Much like that. Well, so I have a confession to make. When I was talking earlier about putting this heat shield on, I actually had it flipped around backwards. It's on there correct now, but the problem I was running into is the way I had it on there, which I'll show you now. I had it on there like this. And the problem that creates is there's little grooves here, or there's a lip here, and there's some raised portions here, and that runs into the brake rotor. It keeps you from putting it flush all the way back on these lugs. So what you actually need to do is make sure you have it this way. So these slots, you want the outer slots to be pointing towards, the engine. And if you can see here, I don't know if it'll focus, but this is what I'm talking about. These little loops, you want those pointing back. And then there will be some inner loops that actually are near where the hub connects, and you want those pointing out. So it should go on there like this, rather than the way I had it. So now that I've gone there on it correctly, I have to reattach the hub assembly, get it all torqued back down right again, and then I can go about putting the brake back together. So let me repeat what I just did with this on there the right way. Okay, now that I've got that shield on the right way, my rotor actually goes all the way back flat and flush against this new hub. So if you're running into that issue where you can't get this all the way back once you put the, everything back together, it could be that you got that shield backwards. So take a look at that. So what I'm going to do now is just keep doing the reverse of the process we did before. I'm going to get that put back together, and we'll put the caliper back on, and then it'll just be putting the wheel on, and we're done. So I'm just going to grab this, retighten it. Also check your, if you have a repair manual or you look up online, some of these require a little bit of Loctite to put on here. So if you have that, some red Loctite, that's a good thing to put on here to make sure it stays tight. There we go, got that on. Look at that spin, so much better. I'm excited. Alright, now let's work on getting the caliper mounting bracket back in place. First I'm going to give this rotor a wipe because I've gotten some brake grease from my gloves on the rotor here. So I want to make sure that's cleaned up first. Alright, so I just got a towel here. I'm going to towel this off because really you don't want any grease on your brake surface here. So I'm just going to give it a quick shot of brake clean. Kind of squirt it around. I'm just going to wipe this off. Just make sure it's nice and clean. It's okay for it to have grease here because that's going to keep your wheel from seizing up with rust onto the rotor surface, making it hard to pull off if you're able to change it. But right here, you want it to be nice and clean, just to make sure that, it's just brake material on brake material. We don't want any grease or lubrication in there, because that wouldn't be good for braking. Make sure you get the back too a little bit. You can just do that by spinning here. Get it nice and clean. That should be good. Alright, now it'll be time to put that caliper, the caliper mounting bracket back in there. And there's a torque spec that you have to follow for that too, so make sure you look that up. We'll just slide this on here like this. And for whatever reason, the new hub also came with bolts for this. So I'm going to go ahead and use these new ones on this as well. Looks like they have a little bit of Loctite already on them, which is perfect because I'm actually out right now. Okay, for the two bolts on the back here for this mounting bracket, the factory spec for the 2007 Silverado Classic is actually 129, so it's very similar to what we used for the hub. But I'm going to go ahead and adjust my torque wrench down to 129 and getting this tightened down to factory spec. Okay, perfect. Got this remounted. A little bit of dirt out of there. And now we just got to put the brake shoes back in. There you go, perfect. Got the shoes slid back in. Now what we're going to do is spin this caliper back around. Make sure you're not getting any kinks in your brake hose. Get that line back up. If your piston compressed any, you'll have to get a C-clamp, push those pistons back in to make sure this fits. Mine didn't move, luckily, so I can go ahead and just reinstall the bolts to the slide pins here. And for the guide pins, there's actually a factory torque spec on those as well. You're going to want to get them to 74 on this truck. So 74 pound-foot. Alright, once you get your guide pins here and down here fastened up at 74, everything should be back in order. We've got this new one on here. So all I have to do left now is to clip this ABS wire into its proper location and fasten it right up here on top of where the coil mounts, and then put the wheel back on and it'll be ready to test drive. So let's walk you through this real quick, what we're going to do here. And this is fairly simple. You just, that clip we undid right here, it just clicks into this gap right here, like that. Make sure it's nice and secure. Great. Then we're going to want to route this next one up right here. And there's a hole in the upper control arm that you just slide these little, I guess you call them plastic screw deals, these little, they got the teeth on there. You just slide that in, if you can, one-handed. Click that one in place. And you're going to want to follow the next one up. And it's right up here on top of where the upper control arm mounts. So work it down into its hole. And then there's a final one. Kind of hard to see, I don't have a lot of light. But there's a hole right here that this one clips into. So you'll probably want to go ahead and clip the socket back together. Make sure it latches right there. And you can probably go ahead and feel for the hole with your finger and click this final one into place. Hopefully without your glove in there. Get it snapped in. There you go. So with that, we have a new wheel hub assembly fully installed. All we gotta do is put the wheel back on. Alright, so just roll the wheel back over. We'll get it positioned. There we go. Throw a couple lugs on to hold it in place. And I usually like to give this a little spin while tightening these a little bit. Just make sure they're all relatively the same before I start the process of, star tightening to the correct spec. And the factory spec for these lug nuts is 140. So you want to make sure you get these to 140. Too loose rims are obviously a problem because your wheel's probably having motion in it that it shouldn't. And actually, a lot of people make these too tight. And making your lug nuts too tight puts a lot more stress on these lugs themselves, and they can shear off of that new hub we just put on, causing, that can cause accidents and a lot of problems. So you want to make sure that you're getting these to the proper spec as well, which again in this case is 140. So I've already got my torque wrench set to 140, got my 22mm socket, and I'll probably have to lower this before I can tighten it, but I'm just going to try and give it a little bit right here. Just kind of a little preliminary tightening. And remember, when you're going and tightening a wheel, you want to do the star pattern and go across from where you've been before. Don't just go in a circle. Okay, now I've got to drop the truck back down, put the weight back on it, and then I can put the final torque spec on these and put the cap back on, and it'll be ready to go. It's exciting. Alright. So now I'm just going to torque the wheel up to its final spec of 140, and this project will be done. So let's do that. Remember to do the star pattern. Alright, that finishes it up. Got the wheel back on, brand new hub back here. I'm excited to go test drive it and see if the noise has gone away, which I'm really hoping it is. If not, we'll keep troubleshooting. Need a new one of these anyway though, because like I said, wasn't getting a free spin, so now it should spin pretty freely. Yeah, I'm excited. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, this is a 2007 Silverado Classic 1500 that I just put a new Moog wheel bearing on. And down in the description box you'll find, I'll put the part number and a link to it, a couple different places you can get it, and maybe some of the other stuff that I used in this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. As problems come up with this truck and the other trucks that I've got, I'll be making videos and showing you guys how to fix them, what to do when I fix problems. On this one I've got a couple other problems that I'm looking forward to fixing and showing you guys how to do. So stay tuned for those. Be sure to consider subscribing. Use the button below and subscribe if you want to see those videos. Because like I say, as problems become available on this truck, I will be trying to fix them. The dog walks through again. Nice. Let me know what you thought about this video down below, and give it a like if this was really helpful to you. And let me know how your repairs went if you did this, and just be sure to check out some of the other videos as well, because like I say, more content's going to be coming as I experience issues on the trucks. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Enjoy the rest of your day, and happy wrenching.